at Holy Cross College, Trichy, Reverend Dr. Judy Gomez, Miss Durga, other faculty members, Department of English, Holy Cross College, and dear student friends, good afternoon to all of you. At the outset, I would like to thank the Department of English, Holy Cross College, in particular, Dr. Catherine Edward, for inviting me to talk on research. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for this warm invitation to talk on research. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.
So, dear friends, I'll be talking for 1 hour, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions related to research. Please note them down. And after I make my presentation, you're welcome to raise your questions. I will spend at least half an hour. I promise to spend at least half an hour with you answering your questions after I make my presentation. I have made a PowerPoint. I'll be sharing my screen with you. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's very visible.
Okay, I'll try to go to the full mode.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so my screen is visible. Okay, fine. So, dear friends, the topic of my presentation is research in English, but the subtopic is more appropriate to you because as BA students, you will be doing some writing, and as MA students, you will be doing a project work. And in case you do your MPhil or PhD, you will be writing your MPhil thesis or your PhD thesis. So therefore, the subtopic is how to write a good thesis, whether it is at the BA level or at the MA level or at the research level. Fine. Now, the first 2 slides, this slide and the following slide, they talk about what research is. Now, the difference is this particular slide talks about research predominantly from a literature, from a literary point of view, whereas the following slide that also talks about research, but that will be from a language point of view. So the question is the same. What is research? How do we define research? What do we do in research? And I have tried to answer this question from 2 points of view, from 2 perspectives. One is from a literary point of view, from a literary perspective. The other is from a language, from a linguistics point of view. Now, all over the world, every day, all kinds of people are talking about coronavirus. I am sure you are no exception. I am not an exception either. I have already received 2 doses of Covishield vaccine. But now the government is talking about a booster vaccine because there is a new variant. So all over the world, in all research laboratories, they are working very hard to find out what is this virus, where did this originate, how does it spread, what precautions should we take, are 2 doses enough, or should there be a booster dose? So, in other words, a lot of research is being done to tackle this particular dangerous virus. So, this is research. So, what is research? Please look at the first line. It is a search or quest for knowledge. In this case, you want to know more about a particular virus. What is the nature of this virus? How does it infect people? How do we save people from this virus? What are the precautions one has to take? Is there a new variant? So what is the composition of this new variant? Is it more dangerous than the earlier versions? So when a topic is given to you, whether it is from medicine or from physics or from chemistry or from mathematics or from English language and literature, you want to search and you want to know more about that particular topic. So this is basically research. So you ask somebody in mathematics, you ask somebody in life sciences, you ask somebody in management, you ask somebody in languages. How do they define research? They all would define research as a search for knowledge, a quest for knowledge, a thirst for knowledge. Okay. Now, how do you proceed? So, what is research? How do you proceed? It is a systematic process of investigation or exploration of an idea or thesis or proposition or statement or hypothesis undertaken with a view to knowing more about a given phenomenon or a topic or an author or a text. I have already given you the example of the coronavirus. So you want to know more about this. How do you do this? Systematic investigation or systematic or scientific exploration. So this is research. Now from literature, I would like to give you some topics. For instance, somebody is interested in Manju Kapoor. Manju Kapoor is a prominent New Delhi-based writer. She has written novels like Difficult Daughters, Home, Custody, A Married Woman, The Immigrant. Or you take another woman novelist, Anita Nair. She has written some outstanding novels like Lady Scoopé, A Better Man, Mistress. So you want to know more about Anita Nair, or you want to know more about Manju Kapoor, or somebody researching on Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. She wants to know more about Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. So how do you do? How do you proceed? What do you do? How do you proceed? So you systematically examine her novels. You analyze them scientifically so that you gain a better knowledge of that particular author and her work. So this is research. Now, why do you do this? Why do you undertake this inquiry? Why do you spend so much time, so much effort reading about a particular author, his novels, her poems, her dramas? The reason is, why do you want to know more about coronavirus? How is that going to help you? So please look at the last paragraph. When you do this, that is when you systematically, scientifically explore a particular topic or a particular statement or a particular proposition, you do this with a view to acquiring knowledge. How? Through a systematic inquiry. And look at the last line, thereby you're contributing to that particular domain of field.
Sir, sorry for the interruption, sir.
Yes.
Sir, sorry for the interruption, sir. Sir, can you please change the slides, sir?
No,
Can you please go on with the slideshow options?
No, I am still on slide 1.
We are in this. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
I'm still on slide 1. Okay, I
Now
think the
in slide 2.
Okay, fine.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thanks for alerting me.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
so please go through that
Thank
slide once again. Look at the first line. So what is research? How do we define research? Whether it is in the field of sciences, pure sciences, or social sciences, or humanities, or languages, we define research as a search for knowledge, as a quest for knowledge, or a thirst for knowledge. And what do you do in research? How do you proceed? It is a systematic process of investigation or exploration of an idea or thesis or proposition or hypothesis or statement undertaken with a view to knowing more about a given phenomenon or a topic or an author or a text. I have already given you a lot of examples. You go back to the coronavirus. So you want to know more about coronavirus. Okay, how does it infect people? What are the dangers of getting infected by this coronavirus? Already a lot of research has been done, but you want to continue with this research. You want to take it further. Why? Because you want to know more about it. Okay, so this is one example. I'll give you one more example. I was talking about Manju Kapoor. Manju Kapoor is a Delhi-based writer. She recently gave up a job so that she can devote herself full time to writing. So she has written a lot of novels, and some of the novels have won her awards. So some of her novels are Difficult Daughters, Home, Custody, The Immigrant, A Married Woman. Now, already a lot of research has been done on Manju Kapoor, maybe at the MA level or at the MPhil level or at the PhD level. If someone is interested in your department, maybe a BA student or an MA student or a PhD student, so what does she do? She reads all the novels of Manju Kapoor, systematically analyzes them. Why? Why does she undertake this exercise? So that she can discover something new. So, dear friends, basically the question is, what is research? How do we define research? So, research is a search for knowledge. It is a quest for knowledge. I told you the first two slides, they talk. The first slide talks about research from a general point of view, particularly from a literature, from a literary point of view, whereas the second slide talks about research from a linguistics point of view, from a language point of view. So this slide talks about research from a literature point of view. Now look at this. This is from a linguistics point of view. I am sure in your syllabus, maybe either at the BA level or at the MA level, you have a paper on ELT, English language teaching. Now, this English language teaching is part of linguistics, particularly part of applied linguistics. Okay, and please look at the last line. This is a very famous book. I'm sure you have this book in your library. The author is David Nunan, Nunan, and the title of the book is Research Methods in Language Learning. Now, what is the question? The question is, what is research? Now, we have already answered this question from a literature point of view. Now, we will try to answer this question from a language point of view, from a linguistics point of view. Okay, so Noonan, in his book Research Methods in Language Learning, he defines research as a systematic process of inquiry consisting of three elements of
Hello, sir.
Could you all hear him? Yeah.
No, ma'am.
So for two seconds, we were not able to hear you, sir. Niveta, can you be in one ID, da? Niveta?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Niveta, we have reached 100.
Professor said he'll log in again. Durga?
Ma'am.
Yeah, I think it meets its.
Ma'am?
I think one of us must move out. I think you told Niveda,
Yes.
because it's already.
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. I've
I'm just
insisted
checking
students
on-
to move out
Yes, yes.
of the
No,
G
no,
meet and
no,
join.
no. You just move one person
Yes.
alone. We will see.
We are in,
Because it's 100 as
we are
such.
removing to. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I'm just removing the first year students, ma'am. First years, can you please leave the meet?
No. Even 97, it's
I
enough.
think some
It's
of the
enough.
first years.
No, Durga,
Yes,
now
ma'am.
it's enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
So now you try, sir, because it's exceeded 100. That's why. Yeah, yes, come back.
Sir, you're not audible, sir. Can you please on your mic?
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very much.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, please alert me if something goes wrong. I will try to rectify it from my end. Okay, dear friends, sorry for the interruption. This is the second time that is
Sure.
happening. I'm really sorry. So I was talking about whether eating rice for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner will make you fat. Okay, so how do we go about? We have a question. Is eating rice good? Is eating rice for all three meals good or bad? So we have a question and we want to find an answer to this question. So what do? We collect data. So 100 samples, another 100 sample. So we have two samples. So once we collect data, we analyze the data, we examine the data, we interpret the data, and then we arrive at result. So what is the result? No, eating rice for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner does not make you put on weight. Or yes, this is true. If you eat rice all three times, you will add extra weight. Okay, so this is how research progresses. So this is an example. This is an ordinary example. I want to give another example from linguistics. Okay, now watching BBC News every day will improve your spoken English, will improve your accent, will improve your intonation. Okay, so this is a suggestion. Okay, so I want my students, whether they are BA students or MA students, I want my students to watch BBC News every day, at least for 15 minutes every day, so that their pronunciation improves. But I do not know whether it will improve or not. Okay, so this is only a suggestion. This is only a hypothesis. By the way, what is a hypothesis? A hypothesis is a statement that has not been verified. A hypothesis is a statement that has not been tested. Okay, for instance, eating rice all three times will make you put on weight. So, this is a hypothesis, meaning no research has confirmed it, no research has rejected it. So, this is A hypothesis, a proposition or a statement that is yet to be tested, yet to be examined, yet to be verified. Okay, now let us go back to the second example that I gave you. So what is that example? If you watch BBC, your accent, your pronunciation, your intonation will improve. So what do? You take 100 students and make them watch BBC News every day. Another 100 students, they only attend classes, they don't watch BBC. So after 3 months or after 4 months, you check the accent of group A and you check the pronunciation of group B. Then you will find out whether watching BBC every day has made a difference or not. Okay. So dear friends, these two slides. Okay. So the first one, what is research, that is from a literature point of view, and the second slide, what is research from a language point of view. They both have tried to answer the question, what is research? Fine. Now please look at this slide. I have answered the question, what is research? But at the same time, I want to clarify what research is not. Okay? Fine, look at the first point. This is what many students do. I'm sorry to say this. This is what many students do at the BA level and at the MA level. And some of them, I'm sorry to say, they do it even at the MPhil or the PhD level. They have taken 3 novels or 4 novels or 5 dramas. So what do? They give the summary of the text. So chapter 2, summary of text A. Chapter 3, summary of text B. Chapter 4, summary of text C. Then there is an introduction, there is a conclusion. Please remember, this is not research. Presenting summaries of novels, presenting summaries of dramas, presenting summaries of films, this will not be considered research. Okay, point number 1. Point number 2. Okay, you have taken 2 novels. Let us take, let us say you have taken Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni's The Palace of Illusions or The Mistress of Spices. So what do? You go to the internet and find out what people have already written about these 2 novels. So what do? You collect them and then you present them in 3 chapters or 4 chapters. So that also is not research. So what is the second point? Producing an elaborate survey of literature. So that is not research. Paraphrasing, summarizing, rehashing what has already been written on a particular author, what has already been written with reference to a particular novel. That is not research. Why? Because it is not your work. It is somebody else's work. So what you're doing is you're only summarizing, you're only paraphrasing, you're only rehashing, recycling what someone has already written. Or please look at point number 4. This is what many students do in all institutions. I'm not referring to your institution. This is what students do in general. Cut, copy, paste. A lot of materials are available on the internet, on any author, on any text, on any film. So what do? You download and you convert it into part of it chapter 1, part of it chapter 2, part of it chapter 3. So cut, copy, paste, cut, paste. Okay, from the internet, from books, from other theses, from other dissertations. And then you produce a beautiful work. So you're copying, you're stealing, you're plagiarizing. This is not research. Or what do some students do? They don't copy. But what they do is they read, write something, type something, pin it up, and then hand it over. There is no methodology, there is no structure, there is no clarity, there is no coherence, there is no thesis statement, there is no argument. That cannot be considered research. Or some students, they try to do an honest job, but then what happens is they do not follow a systematic process. There is no methodology. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, that is missing, that is lacking, that is wanting. And documentation. I'm sure all of you have already been introduced to the MLA handbook. We have the 8th edition and we also have the 9th edition. So you do not know how to quote, where to use single quotation mark, where to use double quotation mark, where should the page number appear, on top or at the bottom. Okay, so without any documentation. So dear friends, please make a note of it. This is not research. Okay, so look at my first 3 slides. The first 2 slides I have talked about what is research, one from a literature point of view, the other from a linguistics point of view, whether it is literature point of view or linguistic point of view. You have to remember it is a systematic, another word for systematic is scientific. It is a systematic or a scientific investigation or examination or exploration. So what is research? Systematically, scientifically, step by step, you investigate or explore or examine a particular author and his or her works. Fine. Now, this is an important question, particularly at the PhD level. Okay, so BA students, don't worry too much about it. Okay, so don't have sleepless nights about this. Okay, so of course, this will apply to BA students also, to MA students also, but more so because it concerns the PhD students. Okay, fine. So, what is originality in research? Okay, but basically the question is, MA students ask me, should my dissertation be original? How can I be original? So that is a very important question. That is a fundamental question, not only with reference to literature and language. This applies to all sciences. Someone doing research in management, someone doing research in physics, someone doing research in mathematics will have to answer this question, original. Okay, fine. Now here is a problem. Someone is doing research, let us say, on Milton, John Milton, or let us say on William Shakespeare, or let us say on Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway, or Manju Kapoor. Now the problem is so much has already been written on Shakespeare. So many books, so many articles, so many essays, so many PhD theses are already available on T.S. Eliot or John Milton or John Keats or R.K. Narayan or Mulkraj Anand. How do you expect me to add something more? So much has already been done. Okay, so it is here that Catherine Belsey is a very important writer, a Britisher. She died recently, and she has written extensively on post-structuralism and deconstruction. So if you are interested in knowing more about post-structuralism and deconstruction, please read her book, Critical Practice. Okay, so that is an important book. So what she says is, okay, so this is a fairly long quote, a long quotation. I don't want to read the entire quotation. Okay, there are only 2 ideas. What she says is, when you talk of originality, it does not have to be 100% original. In other words, you need not be another Newton. You need not be another Einstein. You need not be another Abhijit, who won the Nobel Prize for Economics last year with his wife. You need not be another Amartya Sen. You need not be another Tagore, who won the Nobel Prize for his Gitanjali in 1913. Of course, that is the true meaning of originality. But we cannot be like Tagore. We cannot be like Einstein. We cannot be like Newton. But at the same time, at least a little bit of Newton, even though not 100% like Newton, at least 1%, 1.2%, 1.5%, 1.21%, 1.36%. That is possible. That is possible. Okay, so go to the second paragraph and look at the last line. It's talking about originality. The contribution can be quite small. Even if you say one thing new about Shakespeare or T.S. Eliot or Hemingway or R.K. Narayan or about Anita Desai, that is wonderful. Okay, so that is why what I would say is BA students, you don't worry too much about it. Okay, MA students or at least the MPhil students, even if you contribute 1% or 2% to the existing knowledge available on a particular author, I think you would have earned your MA degree or your MPhil degree. So at least one new idea, one new argument, one new observation, that is enough. Okay, so this is about originality in research. Now let us discuss an important topic. Okay, so a lot of students, BA students, MA students, they really struggle with this topic, how to choose a topic. Okay, so whether you're working on novels or working on short stories or working on dramas or working on films or working on literary theories, so you have to choose something for your BA project work, you have to choose something for your MA dissertation, you have to choose something for your thesis. So how to choose a research topic? Okay, I'll give you some points. Fine. Now the first thing is, most research in language, in literature, in physics, in chemistry, in life sciences, in management, it starts with a guess. Okay, I'll put it in Tamil. இப்படி செஞ்சா என்ன, இப்படி செஞ்சு பார்க்கலாமா. So most research starts with a hunch, an inspired guess. It is not a random guess, it is not a foolish guess, but it is an inspired guess. Okay, you're reading, let us say, the novels of Manji Kapoor, or you're reading the novels of Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, or you're reading the novels of Amitabh Ghosh. Suddenly something strikes you. Why not explore this idea? Why not pursue this idea? From where did this idea come? You do not know. Okay, so some inspiration. So most research, you ask the scientists, they will tell you it is all inspiration and inspired guess. So most research starts with a hunch or a guess, an inspired guess. இப்படி பண்ணுனா என்ன? Okay, so then they pursue it. Okay, so that is the first point. Now the second point, the first thing that you have to do is, okay, topic. So the first thing you have to do is you check with your supervisor, you check with your teacher, you check with your professor, has someone already worked on this topic. You need not worry, you need not ask whether someone has worked on this topic at Bishop Eber College or at Jamal Muhammad or at SRC. That also will be fine. But at least check in your department if someone has already worked on it. For instance, you're reading Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Things, and you're fascinated with the way she uses language. So you want to do some research on how Arundhati Roy has used the English language in a very creative, in an innovative way. So you want to research it. But then please check with your teacher, please check with your supervisor, please check with the librarian. In the last 5 years, in the last 10 years, has anyone already worked on this topic? Okay, if the librarian tells you, or if your teacher tells you, no, 4 years ago one girl worked on this topic, then you drop this idea. Why? Because it is no more original. So that should be the second dimension. The third dimension is it possible? Is it feasible? Okay, now we have taken a study of Amitabh Ghosh's novels. Okay, and what is the time left? The time left is 3 months or 4 months, and we have taken 6 novels. Okay, of course your supervisor will tell you you have only 3 months or you have only 4 months, but you have taken 6 novels. This is MA dissertation. Okay, so within 4 months you will not be able to complete this project. Or you want to do something on new historicism. Okay, but unfortunately in your library, both your department library as well as your general library, you don't have enough materials. You go to Bharatidasan University, there also you don't find good materials. Okay, then you should be wise, you should be sensible. Okay, before choosing a topic, you find out two things. Number one, will I be able to complete this work within the given time? And also check if materials are available. Sometimes they choose Australian indigenous writers. Okay, one of my students, she wanted to work on Australian indigenous authors, and she had chosen two novels. She was able to get one novel, but the other novel she was not able to get. Okay, so ensure that materials are available, at least the primary sources are available. If the materials are available, even if the topic is very good, please do not take up this topic. The next one is you should be interested in this topic. You should be interested in this author. You should be passionate about it. If either in the your research will lack substance, it will lack content. Next, ensure that there is a scope for further research. Okay, so these are something general, fine. Now, here is an important question for you. How do you choose a topic? Now, what you do is first a broad area, then you identify a topic, then you identify a subtopic, and then you turn it into a research problem. Okay, I'll give an example. Now, 2 months back, a candidate approached me. She has passed to JRF and she wants to do PhD. So the first thing that I asked her, okay, what interests you? Are you interested in British literature or American literature or Australian literature or Canadian literature or Indian English literature? Okay, then she said, I am interested in Indian English literature. Fine. Now we have already narrowed it down. Okay, in Indian literature, what interests you? Are you stories or criticism? She said, I am interested in novels. See how we have proceeded? So earlier it was something general. Then we narrowed it down to Indian writing in English, Indian English literature. And within Indian English literature, we further narrowed it down to novel. Okay, now novel. Okay, whom do you want to work on? A male writer or a female writer? Before independence or after independence, 20th century or 21st century, or a contemporary author? Then she said, I want to work on a woman novelist and a contemporary novelist. Okay, then who are the contemporary novelists? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anita Desai is there, Kiran Desai is there, Anita Nair is there, Manji Kapoor is there, then a few others. Then she said, I want to work on the novels of Manji Kapoor. Okay, so this is how you proceed. Narrow it down, narrow it down. Of course, since it was a PhD research, she had to concentrate on all the novels of Manji Kapoor. But had it been an MA dissertation, then I would have asked her further. Manji Kapoor has written close to 10 novels, more than half a dozen novels. Now, which novels are interesting to you? Then you have to make a choice. Okay, so this is how you have to choose. Fine. Now go to the last 2 points. Now, how many texts? Okay, very often MA students ask me, is one novel okay, or should I work on 2 novels, or should I work on 3 novels? Okay, now what I would suggest is 1 is okay, but 2 would be better. So this is for the MA level. If it is the BA level, I think 1 novel or 1 drama or 1 collection of short stories should be definitely okay, because it is the beginning of research. It is the starting point for your research. You're only an undergraduate student, so 1 is enough. But at the MA level, at the postgraduate level, what I would suggest is 1 novel is okay, 1 collection of short stories is okay, 1 collection of poems is okay, but 2 would be better. Okay, so if someone wants to work on 3 novels, absolutely fine. Okay, but don't burden yourself. 2 is fine. But if it is at the PhD level, what I would suggest is you don't have a choice, you don't have an option. You have to include all the novels, all the works of a particular author. Fine. Now, the last point, is very confusing to students. Okay, so whenever I talk about research methodology, I tell them, because for the MPhil students, I teach a course on research methodology. I tell them you should have a theoretical framework. And what do I mean by a theoretical framework? A post-colonial study of the novels of Amitav Ghosh, or an eco-critical study of the novels of Amitav Ghosh, or a feminist reading of the novels of Manju Kapoor, or a hermeneutical interpretation of the dramas of Girish Karnad. So that would be the theory. Post-colonialism is a theory, deconstruction is a theory, hermeneutics is a theory, eco-criticism is a theory. Now the question is, very often students ask, should I have a theory? Now the answer is yes and no. Okay, for BA students, I would tell you, I would not insist on a theory. If you can write a decent summary and if you can come up with a few critical remarks or critical observations, I think I am happy, I am satisfied. If it is for the MA students, okay, in addition to writing a summary, a critical summary of the novel, if you can also look at it theoretically, maybe from a feminist point of view, or from a structuralist point of view, or from a post-colonial point of view, or from a cultural studies point of view, or from a narratology point of view, I think that would be better. Okay? But the point is, I want to make it very clear, a thematic study is as good as a theoretical study. If someone says, I don't want to use any theory, no feminist theories, no post-colonial theories, no theories of narratology or structuralism or post-structuralism or eco-criticism, it is going to be a simple, plain thematic study. The major themes in the select novels of Arundhati Roy. She has written 2 novels, so you want to examine the major themes. Fine, go ahead. Okay, but I will be happy if you use a theoretical framework, particularly at the MA level. For the PhD students, it is a must. You should have a theoretical framework. Okay, so dear student, dear friends, this is about choosing a topic. Fine. Now, what is the first stage? How do you begin your research? Okay. Now, the first 2 steps with regard to research is, even before approaching your teacher, even before approaching your research guide, even before approaching your supervisor, you should have already completed 2 tasks. I repeat, even before you discuss your research project with your teacher, with your supervisor, you should have completed these 2 tasks. What are the 2 tasks? Number 1, you have already identified your author and you have already identified the text singular or text plural that you want to work on. I have already chosen the author and I have already chosen the novel or novels that I am going to examine. So that is stage 1. Stage 2, you have already prepared what is called a working bibliography. Please come to the second paragraph. Now there are different types of bibliography. Bibliography is a collection of or a list of books. Biblio is book. A list of books and articles, that would be bibliography. A list of books. Now we have different kinds of bibliography. We have different types of bibliography. We have working bibliography. We have annotated bibliography. We have select bibliography. We have comprehensive bibliography. But what we are interested in is working bibliography. So look at the title. It is working bibliography. It is not final. It is not complete. It is working, meaning it is tentative, it is provisional, it is in the making. Okay, paadi mudichadu. So that is called working bibliography. What is this working bibliography? Now that you have chosen your author and that you want to study for your research, for your project work, for your dissertation, you find out what are the major books and articles you have to consult on the author you have chosen. If you have chosen Arundhati Roy, what are the books that you should read? You make a list, not a list with 200 entries or 300 entries. Okay, so some 10 basic entries or 15 basic entries, or you want to study her most recent novel or her earlier novel, The God of Small Things. So, if you want to do The God of Small Things, what are the important books that we have to refer to? What are the important articles that we have to refer to? Okay, fine. Now, maybe some student wants to ask me, how do I find out what are the important books, what are the important articles on Arundhati Roy and her God of Small Things? So, what you do is, you pick out any important book on Arundhati Roy or any PhD thesis on Arundhati Roy, you go through the work cited, there you will find books on Arundhati Roy. Okay, you look at the list. Okay, by looking at the title, something may interest you, something may inspire you, so you note it down. And please remember this working bibliography, it keeps changing, it keeps evolving. You add more, you add new titles, you delete some titles, you add some titles, and finally this working bibliography, once you have completed your research, it turns into works cited. Okay, so please remember two things that you have to do before you meet your research supervisor. Number one, you have already identified the author and you have already identified, you have chosen the text or the texts plural that you want to work on. Step number one. Step number two, you have already prepared your working bibliography. Fine. Now you have to do your literature review. What is this literature review? The first thing you have to ask your supervisor is, ma'am, I have chosen Arundhati Roy and I have chosen a novel, The God of Small Things. Can I proceed with this author? Can I proceed with this title? Or please tell me, has anyone from our department, either at the BA level or at the MA level or at the MPhil level, has anyone already worked on this particular topic? Then maybe the research supervisor will tell you, yes, I remember 6 years ago one MA student worked on this topic. Or your teacher may tell you, please go to the library. All the MA projects are stacked up. Please look at the list. Spend some time. Please look at the list or check with the librarian. She will give you the list of the MA dissertation submitted in the last 10 years, submitted in the last 15 years after the publication of The God of Small Things. Quickly go through the list and find out if anyone has already worked on the topic that you have in mind. This is called the literature survey. Okay. So what are you surveying? You're surveying the work that has already been done with reference to the author and the text that you have chosen. Now this is very important. Why is it important? Now imagine you write a thesis, 75 pages, on the use of myth and folk tales in Girish Karnad, in particular, in particular with reference to Girish Karnad's Yayati and Nagamandala. When you submit your thesis, the supervisor tells you, my God, you should have asked me before taking this topic. Only 2 years back, someone worked on it and got her degree. So what happens? The whole thing becomes a waste. So you should have checked if someone has already worked on this particular topic. Okay, so if you don't do your literature survey, what happens is there is a possibility, it is only a possibility, there is a possibility that you may be repeating what someone has already done. Two things, literature review or literature survey, and please go to the fourth line. There is a word called the research gap. Okay, you want to work on Arundhati Small Things. Okay, you find out what are the MA dissertations or the PhD dissertations that have already been written on Arundhati Roy, in particular with reference to the God of Small Things? You go to your library, you check with your supervisor, she will tell you, or please go to point number 5. You go to InflibNet based in called Shodh Ganga. Okay, Shodh Ganga. What is the Shodh Ganga? It is an online repository, a digital archive, a digital library of the PhD thesis submitted to Indian universities. Your own teachers, you take Dr. Catherine, Dr. Judy Gomez, their PhD thesis will be available on Shodh Ganga. Okay, so whatever the university is, whether it is Kashmir University or Manonmaniam Sundaranar University or Jadavpur University or Jaipur University, all PhD theses are available online, are available in Shodh Ganga. So you type Girish Karnad, all the PhD theses submitted on Girish Karnad will be available. So you quickly go through the list and then you will get an idea what has already been done and what is yet to be done. What is yet to be done, that is called a research gap. So please remember two things. A survey of literature, also known as literature review, is very important. Why? So that you do not repeat what has already been done. And why do you undertake this literature survey or literature review? So that you can identify or locate the research gap. What is yet to be done, what is yet to be explored, that is called research gap. Fine. Now, you have done your literature survey, you have identified your research gap. So, the next stage is you have to formulate what is called your thesis statement. Okay, your thesis, let us say, will be 50 pages or 57 pages or 67 pages or 70 pages. Now, can you condense your entire thesis in one sentence? That is your thesis statement. Okay, and how do you arrive at your thesis statement? Step number 1, you do your literature survey. Step number 2, when you do your literature survey, you try to spot, you try to locate, you try to identify the research gap. Once you have identified your research gap, you turn it, you convert it into a thesis statement. And what is this thesis statement? Please look at point number 2. It is a capsule version of your thesis. As I said earlier, your thesis is 60 pages, 67 pages, 70 pages, 72 pages. If I ask you to talk about your thesis in one sentence, in a single sentence, that will be your thesis statement. It is a capsule version. It is a mini version. I have given you 2 examples. Okay, so look at the first example. This existentialist perspective to highlight the predicament of our women characters. One sentence. Okay, the author's novels, what is the perspective, and what you want to achieve. So everything is here. The entire thesis is here. Or look at one more example. This dissertation attempts an eco-critical reading of Amitav Ghosh's The Hungry Tide. So who is the author? What is the work? What is the theoretical perspective? And what are you going to do? So everything is here. So please remember 3 things. Step 1, survey or review of literature. And when you do your review of literature, when you do your literature survey, that will help you to locate and identify the research gap. Identified or discover the research gap, you turn it into your thesis statement. So what is your thesis statement? You condense, you compress, you summarize your entire thesis in a single sentence. So that is your thesis statement. Fine. Now I have already talked about a theoretical framework. So what is the question? Should there be a theoretical framework? Okay, and what is the answer that I gave? I said yes. I said not required also. Particularly at the BA level, you need not worry about theory. MA level, it is better. At the research level, it is mandatory to have a theoretical framework. What is this theoretical framework? Instead of studying the novels of Arundhati Roy from a general point of view, or instead of looking at the dramas of Girish Karnad from a general point of view, you want to apply a theory, a feminist reading of the novels of Arundhati Roy, a post-colonial reading of the novels of Amitabh Ghosh. So this is the theoretical framework. But there are so many concepts in post-colonialism. When I say a post-colonial reading of Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni's novels or Jhumpa Lahiri's novels, then the student tells me, I remember in my teacher, when she taught me post-colonialism, she talked about a lot of concepts. She talked about ambivalence, she talked about mimicry, she talked about decolonization, she talked she talked about diaspora. So which concept should I use? Because post-colonialism is a broad area, is a broad topic. And under post-colonialism, we have so many concepts, so many ideas. So when I say I'm going to employ a post-colonial perspective, what do I mean? All the concepts in post-colonialism are one or two major ideas. So that would be the conceptual framework. Okay, I have given you two examples. Please look at the last two paragraphs. Post-colonialism is the theory, something broad, something large. Within post-colonialism, you want to talk about diaspora. So that would be the conceptual framework. I'll give you one more example. Feminism is something broad, something large. That is the theory. Now, I am sure you're familiar with Elaine Showalter. She talks about feminist critique and gynocriticism. So gynocriticism is a concept. Okay. So at the MA level, definitely at the PhD level, you should have a theoretical framework and you should also have a conceptual framework. Okay. At the MA level, it would be better, but I do not insist on it. But it is better to have a theoretical framework because that gives you the blueprint as to how you should conceptualize your research and how you should execute that research project fine. Now, the next two slides, they talk about the stages of research. Where do you start? How do you proceed? How do you complete? What is step 1? What is step 2? What is step 4? What is step 5? What do I do first? What do I do last? Okay, so the next two slides will clarify this. So the first one is you identify which author you're going to work on. Is it an Australian writer? Is it a Canadian writer? Is it a native Canadian writer? Is it an Indian writer? Is it a he or is it a she? Is it a male author or a female author? Okay, so as I said, narrow it down, narrow. You start with Indian English literature, you narrow it down to novel, and then you narrow it down to a woman author, a woman novelist, and then you narrow it down to a 20th century woman novelist. Okay, so the first thing is identification of the broad topic or area, number one, identification of the author, number two, and identification of the text or text. So this is the first thing that you have to do. Okay, who is the author and what are the work or works? What is the text or what are the texts? So that is stage one. Stage two, as I said, you have to prepare a working bibliography. What are the important books that you have to refer to? What are the important articles that we have to consult? So that is the working bibliography. Then once you have identified the author and the text and you have also prepared a working bibliography, then you have to do a literature survey. Okay, why? You want to find out if the topic that you have chosen is original or as someone already worked on it, maybe either in your own department or some other institution. So you want to identify the research gap, and once you have identified the research gap, you formulate your thesis statement. Then you choose, okay, for this author, for this novel, what would be the ideal theory? You cannot impose a theory on a particular author or a particular novel. Okay, some students say, oh, I like feminism. Therefore, I would like to do a feminist reading of this author, James Joyce. Okay, now that is not possible. Feminism and James Joyce, they don't go together. Archetypal criticism and James Joyce, they go together. Stylistics and James Joyce, they go together. Okay, so therefore, for this author, for this novel, or for this author, for this drama, what would be the best theoretical framework? So you find out, then once you have the theory with you, then you apply the theory to the examination or interpretation of the text that you have chosen. Then you go to the last chapter. Then what do? You summarize everything and then you write the conclusion and the work cited. In other words, what should be the structure of your thesis? A continuation of the earlier slide. Okay, if it is an MA thesis, what I would suggest is anything beyond 50 pages. If you are writing 25 pages, then I will not accept it. If you are writing 42 pages, I will not accept it. Okay, at least something above 50, maybe 50 pages or 55. What I would suggest is you please aim for 70 pages. Okay, plus or minus. It could be 62, 63, 74, 75, 76, or even 80, but aim for 70 pages. Fine. Now, how many chapters? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What I would suggest is you can have 4 chapters. Okay. Now, you can also have 5 chapters. It is not a sin. You can also have 3 chapters. That is also not a sin. Okay. Now, what I would suggest is you can have 4 chapters. The first chapter will be introduction. The last chapter will be conclusion. The third chapter will be a critical summary of the novel, singular, or the novels you have chosen. And the third chapter will be a critical analysis of the novels you have chosen using the theory that you have adopted. Okay, fine. Now, the first chapter, what do you write in your first chapter? The first chapter, you should have 5 things. Number 1, you briefly introduce the author. Briefly. Don't say when he was born, who was his father, who was his mother, what did the father do, what did the mother do, where did he do his primary school, where did he do his... No. Okay. You introduce the author primarily from a literary point of view. So the author introduction, and you mention, you did a brief survey of literature, and then this is what has already been done on the author, and this is yet to be done. Then you talk about your theoretical framework. Is it post-colonialism? Is it feminism? Is it eco-criticism? Is it hermeneutics? Is it archetypal criticism? Then you talk about the thesis statement, and you talk about the structure of the thesis. How many chapters are there and what is there in each chapter? So roughly 15 pages. So this is introduction. Chapter 2, you have taken 2 novels. So you present a critical summary of the 2 novels. Not an plain summary, but a critical summary with a lot of quotations from the text and from the critical materials that we have referred to. Okay, so that would be 20, something like 20 to 25 pages. Then in the third chapter, if it is a post-colonial reading of Amitav Ghosh, or if it is an eco-critical reading of Amitav Ghosh's The Hungry Tide, or it is a feminist reading of a novel, then what do? You apply the theory to the novel or the short story or the drama that you have chosen. So that will take another 20 to 25. What do you do in your conclusion? You divide your conclusion into 2 parts. In the first part, you bring in the theory and the analysis. That will be 5 to 6 pages. The in each of the chapters. Chapter 1, present a summary. Chapter 2, present a summary. Chapter 3, present a summary. And chapter 4, present a summary. Then 1 or 2 pages on work cited. Okay, so this is how you have to structure your thesis. Fine. Now, here is an important question. A lot of students ask me when I talk on research methodology, what is a good thesis? How do you identify a good thesis? What are the qualities of a good thesis? Okay, there are some important points. The first one is a good thesis, whether it is in science or languages or humanities or pure sciences or social sciences. The first thing is it is original. A new topic has been explored, a new phenomenon has been explored, a new approach has been explored. So, originality of the topic. Number 2, it is not just reading the novel, it is not just reading the short stories, it is not just reading the poems. You critically engage with the text, you analyze the text, you examine the text, you interrogate the text, you dialogue with the text. So, you engage with the text critically. And this is what our Indian students don't do even at the PhD level. They are very passive, they read and reproduce the summary. They don't engage with the text critically. What is the meaning of engaging with the text critically? They don't ask any questions. Why does this character behave like this? Why is the ending like this? Why can't the ending be like this? Why is there a turn in the story? Why can't it be like this? So you ask questions, you interrogate. Then there is a strong theoretical conceptual framework. Then there is a harmony or a synergy between theory and practice. The methodology is good. The structure is neat and balanced. Ethics. The student has been ethical in her writings, in her approach, in her research. The writing is good. Documentation is very good. The candidate thoroughly knows the MLA handbook, and the thesis has made a contribution to that particular field. Fine. Now I have 2 more slides. I will finish it in 5 minutes. Now, what are the major problems of students, major flaws, major errors? Okay. I will talk about a few major problems faced by research, MA students, MPhil students, and also PhD students. Now, the first thing is the topic is not original. Okay, what do I mean? I recently examined a thesis, a post-colonial reading of the novels of Amitav Ghosh. Now, so many PhD theses have already been written on this particular topic. All that the candidate has to do is to go to Shodh Ganga and he or she will find out the number of theses on post-colonialism and Amitav Ghosh. Okay, so therefore the major flaw is proper literature survey is not undertaken or conducted. As a result, the thesis is not original, the topic is not original. Number 2, lack of a proper theoretical framework. And number 3, this is a common problem with many researchers. The structure is loose. What do I mean by loose? Imagine I write my MPhil thesis or MA project or PhD thesis. Well, the first chapter is 5 pages, the concluding chapter is 20 pages, then the 4th chapter is 17 pages. There is no balance. Okay, there is no balance. Okay, so recently I valued a PhD thesis for another state. I can't tell you which university. The introduction was 52 pages. What is the word? It is introduction. Introduction has to be very short. Okay, now someone introduced me. How much time did she take? Okay, so she took, I think, 3 minutes. Now, can she take 20 minutes to introduce a speaker? You will say, oh my God, this is atrocious, but this is what many people do. The introduction is very, very long. And recently I valued a PhD thesis for a neighboring state. The conclusion, please believe me, I am not exaggerating, the conclusion was only 7 pages. Okay, so please pay attention to the structure. Okay, next point, as I told you, a good thesis is one where the student engages with the text. What is the meaning of engaging? You don't write summaries. You ask questions, you interrogate the text, you dialogue with the text. Text mal kattano. So that is the meaning of engaging with the text. Then other major problems, full of quotations. Okay, so how many quotations can there be on a single page? Nobody can give you an answer, but what I would suggest is please ensure that quotations on the page. Okay, in other words, you have to write your project work. In order to support your argument, you quote from an established author. In some cases, what happens? If the page is 22 lines long, then 18 lines or 19 lines are 2 lines or 3 lines are written by the candidate. Okay, then not many secondary sources. This is another major problem. Look at the other issue. Almost all materials are from the internet. As I said earlier, it is cut, copy, paste, and that is how many theses are produced. Plagiarism. What is plagiarism? Stealing somebody's ideas and you do not acknowledge it. Then many theses, including PhD theses, they are not properly proofread. There are grammatical errors, spelling errors, and they do not know how to document words. Work cited is wrong. The MLA handbook tells you very clearly how should the work cited be. What is the format for listing books? What is the format for listing articles? Okay, so you please follow it. Fine. Now my last slide, research ethics. Okay, so what is the meaning of ethics? Ethics is good behavior, bad behavior, acceptable behavior, not acceptable behavior. Stealing from somebody is not ethical. Talking behind someone's back is not ethical. Abusing somebody is not ethical. So similarly in research also, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what is legitimate, what is not legitimate, you should be aware of it. I just want to talk about 3 points. Okay, look at the second point. These days what happens? You go to Xerox centers, they sell you ready-made theses. You don't have to work, you don't have to go to the library, you don't have to waste your time, you don't have to waste your energy. You pay some money, just as you go to Pothys and buy a sari, you can go to a Xerox shop and buy an MA project work. You can even buy a PhD thesis. So this is utterly shameful. This is the most unethical research practice that is horrifying. Okay, so buying ready-made thesis, please don't do it. Number 2, cut, copy, paste, plagiarism. Okay, and number 3, if you are doing research in ELT, where you have to collect data, or if you are doing some work in economics, sociology, where you have to collect data, what do? Without doing field work, you say, I met 60 people. Of the 60 people, 42 are men. The remaining 22 are women. Without going into the field, you create your own data, you fabricate data. So these are the 3 most unacceptable research practices. Okay, these are 7 important texts. Okay, so the first one is interesting. It is titled The Handbook to Literary Research. Then if you are doing research in ELT, English Language Teaching, the 5th book is an important book, Research Methods in Language Learning by David Noonan, published by Cambridge University Press in 1992. And I have written a book on research. It is called FAQs on Research in Literature and Language. It is in the form of questions and answers, 200 questions. Okay, in case you are interested, you can contact the publisher. So dear friends, this is about research. I am sure you have a lot of questions. I am here to answer all your questions. But before that, I would like to thank the organizers, particularly your head of the department, Dr. Catherine Edward, for this invitation, for this warm invitation. Thank you. I am here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, there are some questions being displayed in the chat box, sir.
Can you please read out the question?
Yes, sir. The first question, sir. What are the books preferable for referring theories for research?
Cynthia, please repeat the question.
Sir, the first question is, what are the books that are preferable for referring theories for research, sir?
No, the question is not very clear. Theories means literary theories or research theories?
Literary theories, sir.
Okay, literary theories, fine. Now, literary theories, there are plenty of books, hundreds of books are there. I will just suggest 2 books. Okay.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
I want all the MA students and the MPhil and the PhD students not just to buy, but to be thorough with the book by Peter Barry, Barry, Peter, Peter, that is the first name, Barry, Barry. The title of the book is Beginning Theory. Beginning Theory, originally published by Manchester University Press, but now an Indian edition is available. I think the book costs something like 250 rupees. That is the simplest, easiest, and one of the best books on literary theories. It is called Beginning Theory by Peter Barry. The book is readily available. It is available in Flipkart, in Amazon. Please buy it. Very readable. Lot of examples are given. Okay, so this is number 1. Number 2, there is another book by a lady called Mary, Mary, Mary Klages, Klages, Mary Klages, Klages. She is an American. Peter Barry is a Britisher. Mary Klages is an American, and she has written a book called Literary Theory, a guide for the perplexed, Perplexed, a guide for the perplexed. That book also is extremely good. Both are readily available, not very expensive, and both are very good. Okay, there are plenty of books, but I am sure these 2 books should be fine.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, the next question is it better to directly quote a source or to paraphrase it, sir?
Okay, fine. Now, this is an interesting question, but it involves one more question. Now, what I would suggest is, if it is an important quote and a brief one, 2 things. Now, it is important, it is to the point, it is very relevant, number 1, and number 2, it is brief, 3 lines, 4 lines, 5 lines. So what I would suggest is, you quote it, you don't summarize it. Okay, now when do you summarize a quote? When do you paraphrase a quote? Particularly if it is a long quote, running to 2 paragraphs, running to 3 paragraphs. So what you can do is, you can summarize it, you can paraphrase it. And if it is not very, very important, okay, so if it is a short quote and if it is directly relevant and applicable to your argument, don't summarize, don't paraphrase, instead quote directly. But if the quote is long, okay, more than 2 paragraphs, more than 3 paragraphs, and is not directly and immediately relevant to your argumentation, then you can paraphrase it. But when you paraphrase it, please do not forget to acknowledge it, and please provide the necessary documentation details. Because many students think, because I have written it in my own language, When you summarize, when you paraphrase, what do? You try to write it, you try to summarize it in your own language. So students think, because I have used my own language, there is no need to acknowledge the sources. Whether you go directly or whether you paraphrase, either way, the sources have to be acknowledged. Am I making it very clear?
Yes,
Because a
sir.
lot of students have told me, sir, this is my language. Why should I acknowledge? This is my paraphrase. This is my summary. No. You have only paraphrased somebody else's idea. So therefore, acknowledge the original.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, the next question is, what are the latest research topics related to pandemic literature, sir?
Now, a lot of webinars have been organized and a lot of webinars have been conducted on this pandemic, starting with the Theban plague. As students of literature, I am sure you are familiar with the Theban plague, the Theban plays. Okay, so right from that, and then when you come to the 20th century, you have Albert Camus' The Plague, and now you have the pandemic, you have this COVID-19. Okay, so a lot of webinars have been organized, have been conducted on pandemic literature. So that is something interesting. Okay, so I don't know if books have been written on this pandemic literature, but lot of webinars have been organized and articles are available on pandemic literature, and someone can work on these novels, these dramas also. That will be a good topic.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, the next question is, how to conclude a research thesis, sir?
Okay, fine. Now, how to conclude a research thesis? Fine. Now, please remember three things. This is with regarding the conclusion. Okay, number one, the concluding chapter is the shortest chapter. I repeat, the concluding chapter should be the shortest chapter. If it is an MA dissertation, 8 pages, 9 pages, 10 pages, more than sufficient. Don't write 20 pages, 25 pages, but at the same time, see to it that you do not produce 2 or 3 pages and then you call it a conclusion. Okay. So the first point you have to remember is the concluding chapter is the shortest chapter. Fine. Number two, this is where a lot of students make mistakes. Do not say anything new in the concluding chapter. Look at the title. You're only concluding the arguments. So therefore, do not say anything new. Do not present anything new. Whatever you wanted to say, whatever you wanted to present, that you should have done it already in the introductory chapter, in the second chapter, in the third chapter. So the last chapter, the concluding chapter, that is not the place to present any new argument. Okay, so the first thing is the concluding chapter should be the shortest chapter. Number two, do not say anything new in the concluding chapter. And number three, the last point, you're dividing the concluding chapter into two, part A and part B. Part A, you present an overall summary of the entire thesis, and part B, you present summaries of the individual chapters. Okay, so please remember these 3 points. Okay, it should be the shortest chapter. Don't say anything new in the concluding chapter. Divide your concluding chapter into part A and part B. Part A, present an overall summary of the thesis, the dissertation, and part B, provide summaries of individual chapters.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, the next question is, can we include the phrase study of in the title of the thesis, sir?
Cynthia, please repeat.
Sir, the next question is, can we include the phrase study of in the title of the research thesis, sir?
By all means, you can include a study of the novels of Amitav Ghosh from a post-colonial perspective. By all means, you can include. Absolutely no problem.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, the next question is, can you please suggest some methods or ways to identify different authors who are pertaining to a particular literary theory, sir?
Okay, what I would suggest is you go to Peter Barry or you go to Mary Klages. Okay, if you read the chapter on postmodernism, Peter Barry will tell you who are the people who have talked about postmodernism. If you go to the chapter on post-colonialism, who are the people who have talked about post-colonialism and what are their major works? So everything is given. For instance, if it is post-colonialism, there is certainly a mention of Edward Said and his book Orientalism. So similarly, for every theory, who are the major theories? Who are the major theories and what are their major works? So all these are discussed in the individual chapters of Peter Barry and Mary Klages.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, the next question is, which MLA handbook should be followed for the year 2021, the current year, sir?
Okay, now the rule is you should follow the latest one, you should follow the current one. Whether it is, imagine somebody asked me this question 10 years from now. Okay, so now we are in 2021. Imagine someone asked me in 2031, which edition of MLA handbook should I follow? Now the answer is follow the latest and the most recent one. So that is the answer. Okay, I am not seeing the latest edition of the MLA handbook, the 9th edition. Okay, but we are still using the 8th one. Even the 8th one, I am not very happy. 7th one is better. Okay, but then we have to make changes. Okay, now the rule of thumb is you follow the most recent one, you follow the latest one.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, for a PhD thesis, how many chapters should be written, sir?
Okay, now for a PhD thesis, what I would suggest is you can have 5 or 6 chapters, 5 or 6, and I will tell you what are the chapters. The first chapter is the introductory chapter. The last chapter is the concluding chapter. Okay, so there is no doubt about these 2 chapters. Now, the second chapter, it will be better if it is a theoretical chapter. For instance, you want to do feminism and a particular author. You want to work on, let us say, post-colonialism and a particular author. So what I would suggest is chapter 2 could present a critical overview of the theory that you want to use. If it is the post-colonial theory, or if it is the theory of feminism, or if it is the theory of cultural studies, then you devote chapter 2 to a discussion of that critical theory. Okay. Now the alternative is, instead of devoting an entire chapter to the discussion of the theory, you can also incorporate it in the introductory chapter. So that also could be done. Okay, so you have to talk about the theoretical conceptual framework. Either you devote an entire chapter to talking about the theoretical conceptual framework, or in the introductory chapter itself, you talk about the theory. Fine. So either way you can do it. So chapter 1 is introductory. Chapter 2, it talks about the theoretical framework. Then what you do is chapter 3 and 4, if you have taken 6 novels or if you have taken 7 dramas, what you do is you analyze 3 novels in chapter 3 and the remaining 3 in chapter 4, or remaining 3 in chapter 4. So first is introductory, second is theory, third is a discussion of the novels you have chosen for analysis, and 4 also is a discussion of the novels you have chosen for analysis. Now 5 is an important chapter. What is that important chapter? It is the penultimate chapter. This is where you do a synoptic study or a holistic study, SYNOPTIC, or holistic, HOLISTIC. So what do you do? Let us imagine I have taken Amitav Ghosh's novels and post-colonialism. Okay, so post-colonialism in The Hungry Tide, post-colonialism in Sea of Poppies, post-colonialism in The Shadow Lines. So I have discussed it with reference to individual novels in a piecemeal fashion. Now in the penultimate chapter, that is the 5th chapter, what I should do is I should present a total view, that is a synoptic reading or the holistic reading, and of course the final chapter is the concluding chapter. So chapter 1 introduction, chapter 2 theory, chapter 3 and 4 chapter 3 and 4 they talk about the novels or the poems or the short stories or the dramas you have taken up for analysis and examination. Chapter 5, the penultimate chapter, presents a holistic reading or a synoptic reading of the text you have chosen. And the final chapter is the concluding chapter. So this would be the general structure. Maybe if you want, you can add a chapter, or if you want, you can delete a chapter. But certainly don't write a PhD thesis with 8 or 9 or 10 chapters. That would be atrocious.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, the next question is, can we choose some works on plantation laborers and their hardships faced as a result of diaspora, sir?
Okay, you can certainly work on plantation literature. Okay, you can certainly work on plantation literature, but find out, you don't start with theory and then you go to the text. It should be the other way about. You start with the text and find out whether theory A is better or theory B is better or theory C is better. So you start with the text and find out from what point of view, from what perspective can I analyze these texts. Accordingly, you choose the theoretical framework, but plantation literature you can certainly do. And in my own university, quite a few MPhil dissertations have been written on plantation literature, and somebody else is working on a PhD thesis on this particular topic. So it is a good area.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, the next question is, what are the possible ways or applications to check plagiarism in our research paper before handing over the final draft, sir?
Cynthia, please repeat.
Sir, the question is, what are the applications that can be used to check plagiarism in our research paper before handing over the final draft, sir?
Okay. Now, the standard format is you have a couple of software. Now, the international software is called Turnitin, T-U-R-N-I-T, Turnitin, Turnitin. So what you do is, it is a software. Maybe your college has bought one, or if not, maybe it is available at St. Joseph's or Bishop Heber or Jamal or in the university, Bharatidasan University. So once you feed your article, it will tell you. It is called the Similarity Index. Okay, so 10% or 15% or 20%. Okay, some institutions use this software called Turnitin, but most colleges and most universities in India, they use another software that has been given to them by the UGC through InflibNet. I forget the name of the software. Urkund, U-R-K-U-N-D, Urkund. Okay, so that is also a software that is not internationally recognized, but Indian colleges and universities, Indian higher educational institutions, they recognize this Urkund. So they will check plagiarism. Okay, it will tell you the similarity index in terms of percentage, and find out what is the acceptable or the permissible limit in Bharatidasan University. Different universities have different levels. Okay, it starts with 5, and if I am able to recall, one university accepts thesis up to 30%. This is indirectly saying you can copy up to 30%. Anyway, you find out what what is the percentage prescribed by your college and Bharatidasan University. So two software, Turnitin and Urkund.
We have 15%. We can have plagiarism can be for 15%, sir. For us.
Okay, 15% is fine.
Thank you, sir. Sir, the last question is, in which chapter one could justify the title of the PhD, sir? Whether it is in 5th chapter or in the conclusion part, sir?
No, you talk about it in the first chapter and then you wrap it up in the last chapter.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. That's all,
I
sir.
think somebody was, one Dr. Lakshmi was trying to post a question. Is there any Lakshmi?
Her question only she asked, sir, now.
I asked a
Her
question,
question,
sir.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
her question only she asked.
Yes,
Any
sir.
more questions? I'll be happy to answer.
That's all, sir.
Okay, so your,
Thank you, sir, for your enlightening words. Research is something that everyone can do, and it involves collecting information and thinking systematically to create a new innovative idea or new knowledge. Sir, your ideas of research and literature inspired us to adopt new research methods. And we also assure you, sir, that we will stick on to your valuable ideas for performing good research in our career. Thank you, sir.
thank you, Cynthia, and my special thanks to Dr. Catherine Edward, the head of the department, and Reverend Dr. Judy Gomez. Thank you and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Gratitude is the memory of the heart. It unlocks the fullness of life and turns what we have into enough and more. Now I call upon Miss Miracle Nivesha of First MA English to propose the vote of thanks.
Warm greetings to one and all gathered here. I deem it a great privilege to render a word of thanks on this glorious occasion. First, I express my heartfelt gratitude to Lord Almighty for the successful conduct of such a delightful webinar. I would like to render my sincere gratitude to our esteemed chief guest, Dr. A. Joseph Dorairaj, Professor of English and Dean, School of English and Foreign Languages, Gandhigram Rural Institute, Dean to be University, Dindigul, for accepting our invitation and glorifying today's occasion with his expertise and brilliance. Sir, you have deeply inspired us with your presentation. Thank you, sir, for enkindling our minds with your expertise, sound knowledge, and lucid views on the topic. I'm so glad to have this opportunity to thank Reverend Sister Dr. Annie Xavier, our esteemed secretary, and Reverend Sister Dr. Christina Bridget, our beloved principal, for extending their prayerful support and motivation in all our intellectual initiatives. I express my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Catherine Edward, head of the Department of English, for a constant support and guidance in making this event a memorable one. It's my pleasure to render my sincere thanks to the staff in charges of the English Literary Association for the formidable support and guidance in every step that we take. I would like to extend my thanks to all the professors of the department who always stand by us and lead us to scale greater heights. Thank you, dear teachers. This event would not be a possible one without the energy and hard work pitched in by our responsible Literary Association team. So I thank each one of you for your cooperation. Finally, I thank all the energetic participants for making this webinar a sound success by being active till the end. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Miss Miracle Nivesha, for your kind words of gratitude. Expressing gratitude is one of the simplest and powerful actions that one can do to another. A simple thank you warms the heart by spreading peace and love to everyone. Now, I thank each and every participant for your kind cooperation and valuable presence in making this program a grand success. Productivity is the splendid result of commitment, excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. Let's continue to be productive and achieve the upcoming endeavors in our life. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Very kind of you to accept and then bring it
Thank you.
relevant points to our students and the staff. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. And in between, I think there were some interruptions. I'm
Thank
sorry
you,
about
sir.
No problem, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I think our students
Thank
have
you,
started
sir.
writing research. The UG and the PG students, I think now what you have shared will help them to write a proper thesis. It was very comprehensible. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sister. Nice meeting you online. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.